There's no mistaking it. That's Labyrinthos.
I don't understand. This is definitely Milsha from back then. I've met Feb, Lieutenant Virgil, and even my younger self. But I can't just accept it so easily. Mom's name. Why is she on the list of test subjects?
Goodbye, young sire.
Transport the test subject.
Mother!
Grab her! Stop struggling!
Hold her down!
Let go of me! Help me, Kevin!
What's she talking about?
Don't touch me!
Someone
Get
shut her
away
up!
from me!
Chapter 53. Reliving the Nightmare. Xian is in a Utic interrogation room where she keeps talking to herself, asking herself questions as her mind is overwhelmed by everything that she has witnessed and learned.
The Red Testament. That was Kevin. Kevin is dead. Was that just an illusion? No, Lieutenant Virgil was really there too. People who are dead are revived as testaments. Kevin said he came for me. Does this mean the testaments aren't our enemies?
On the other side of the room, Margulis, Pellegrini, and other Utic soldiers watch. Margulis notices that her eyes look a lot like Sue Uzuki's eyes. This raises his suspicions, along with the fact that she tried to make contact with both Sue and Kevin, and so he ordered a soldier to call Sue and Kevin to the interrogation room. After the scene where Sue berates Kevin for his plan of using the 27 series Asura, the soldier Margulis sent enters the room and escorts them to the interrogation room. Once everyone enters the interrogation room, Xian calls Margulis by his name, which surprises Margulis. Remember, this Margulis has not met Xian yet, but Sue and Kevin try to get answers out of Xian, but Xian stays quiet and further berates Sue for sacrificing his wife for research. Kevin then interjects with more questions. At one point, Xian mentions the name Ormus, which seems to catch Margulis completely off guard.
Woman, where did you learn the name Ormus?
Remember that nobody's supposed to know the name Ormus except Ormus. While Xian continues to be interrogated, Jen and Alan back at the Elsa argue about their decision to leave Xian behind. Jen is trying to find a calm and rational way to go about things, as Labyrinthos has now stepped up their security, but Alan just wants to rescue Xian, even asking Jen,
Aren't you worried about your sister? I'm sorry. I didn't mean that.
Jen explains that Xian learned about her father's betrayal of the Federation during the Gnosis terrorism, and now she also knows that Jen has been keeping this information from her. So she thinks he was involved with her father's betrayal. Because of this, Xian is not acting out of convictions, but out of spite for her father and Jin. Convictions built on such flimsy foundations will crumble at the slightest provocation, so Jin is worried she will find something that will send Xian over the edge. Jin reveals to Alan that their mother, Aoi, had the same symptoms Xian is exhibiting of fainting randomly. This worries Jin that Xian has the same disease as her mother. Before he can explain further, Momo finds Jin and tells him that Febronia found the Elsa and has news about Xian. Febronia explains Xian's situation to everyone. Junior notes that just going in guns a-blazing into a Utic stronghold is a horrible idea, but fortunately for them, the Miltian conflict is about to happen. Why is this fortunate? Because Junior, Chaos, and Jin all fought in this conflict, so they know exactly what's going to happen. They hope to use this to their advantage, along with the fact that the Utic soldiers will be busy with the Federation soldiers. So with that, everyone, including Alan, head out to rescue Xian. Outside, they notice ships flying over them. It's the URTVs.
Yeah, I know. It's the beginning of this planet's nightmare.
Over in the Labyrinthos interrogation room, Sue enters the room. He tells Xion that the Federation troops have arrived. Because of this, Yutik will probably kill her, so this is the only time she has to escape. His concern and help shocks Xion. Then Sue explains to Xion that the idea that he sacrificed his wife, her mother, for research is not true. At least, not entirely true. Remember, he's just doing it to save Xion, as he knows Xion has the same condition as his wife. But Xion doesn't know this yet. Before freeing her, Sue asks Xion to save Xion, little Xion. He tells her that he doesn't know why, but he feels like she could protect Xion, and that maybe it's because she looks like his wife. As he tries to leave with Xion, Sue notices that the door is locked, and that Pellegrini is in the other room with Utic soldiers and saw what he just did. Apparently, Pellegrini found out that Sue was leaking information to the Federation, something which shocked Xion. Now she knows that maybe he wasn't as bad as she believed him to be. When Pellegrini says that she will dispose of both of them, Jin, Chaos, and Momo walk into the door to stop her, revealing to Pellegrini that Jin was the one that Sue was sending in the leaked information to.
And you look like you've grown older as well.
You look as young as ever.
Get it? Because he's 15 years older than her timeline's Jin, but she's 15 years younger than his timeline's Pella. Okay, anyways. In this scene, we get a feel that Pellegrini and Jin have some complicated history. Pellegrini was once part of the Federation, where she was in a romantic relationship with Jin. She eventually defected to Utic. This may have been because of the destruction of Mekton by the Federation, since Mekton was her home planet. Jin, however, didn't see eye to eye with her when it came to Utic and the immigrant fleet religion, so she left him to join Margulis, who shared her beliefs. After their exchange, Jin and the rest, except for Xion, engage in battle with Pellegrini. After the battle, Sue leaves the interrogation room, and Chaos, Jin, and Momo enter from the other room. Xion happily tells Jin that their dad saved her, and that he said he was trying to protect his wife and family at his own expense. Jin, who was always aware that their father was not a bad person, tells Xion that their father worried about her till his dying breath, which is true considering his last breath is spent calling Jin to rescue Xion. Xion then tells Jin that she has to keep her promise and rescue her younger self. They all head out of Labyrinthos, and on the way out, something plunges down from the sky upon Junior, but luckily Momo moves him out of the way. Above them we see Asher flying over them, and Junior, who can't quite see Asher, says,
Damn it! Try thinking about what's below when you're fighting!
Sorry.
Ha! You remember? I told you to remember. Did you remember? In part 7 of the series, I told you to remember a moment when Asher, being piloted by Chaos and Kanan, dropped his weapon to the ground. This is why. I love this detail. I especially love it because I remember playing Xenosaga 2, and when I saw them drop Asher's gun, I was like, wow, they're gonna just drop it from the sky? What if it falls on someone? And I was so happy when I played Xenosaga 3 and saw that the developers thought the same thing. Anyways, let's continue. I love that little detail. As Xion and the rest approach the outskirts of the city, they hear it. The Song of Nephilim. Shit is about to go down, and all of them know it. This is when we get the scene where little Xion barges into the church where Febrona and Virgil are, with a bunch of out-of-control combat Realians behind her. Then Febrona gets attacked by the Realians, gets killed, and Virgil stays behind while little Xion hurries to Labyrinthos with a key for a backdoor entrance accessible from the forest. Well, this time, there's a little more Virgil's story to tell. Xion and the rest enter the church and see Virgil surrounded with Febrona dead on the ground. Another life Xion will blame herself for failing to save. Again. Enraged, Xion runs at the Realians and, along with the rest of the group, defeats them. After the fight, Virgil falls to the ground and punches it, furious at not being able to save Febrona. Virgil tells Xion, by the way, he still doesn't know what any of their names are, that he sent little Xion off to Labyrinthos, and given how Realians can share information among each other, the Realians in the church probably sent that information to other Realians, so she's in danger. When Xion, who has only known Virgil to be a cold, ruthless man, asks him why he helped little Xion, he tells her
Is there something strange about that? I'm a soldier, but I'm still human. I have a heart.
Showing Xion that Virgil wasn't always a ball of grump and hate. Xion then gives Virgil the Realian self-destruct code, the same one that he used in Xenosaga 1. She tells him to only use it in an emergency. After this, they get surrounded by Realians. While Xion carries Virgil out, the rest of them break an opening for Xion outside of the front door, as it is the least guarded exit. Xion tells Virgil not to quit on her, as that's not like him, and he says,
You...
Not like me, huh? You got that right!
Virgil shuts himself in the church to use the self-destruct code on the Realians, which he could have done without trapping himself in, but whatever. Before blowing the Realians to bits, along with himself, he says,
You know something? Even after all of this, I never got your name.
Virgil!
Virgil, needlessly, sacrifices himself to get the Realians off of their backs, and when Xion enters the church, there's no trace of him. Behind her, she hears someone laughing. It's, Virgil. But the real Virgil, from the current timeline. Testament Virgil. Shouldn't his death have changed something? Don't worry about it. It'll be explained. Laughing at his own display of, needless, bravery, Virgil begins to mock the whole situation, even calling Febronia a tool, trying to avoid any sense of emotional connection to the situation. He goes on to question Xion's moral on Realian rights, as she went against them again by giving his past self their self-destruct code.
Humans are driven by impulse to destroy. Destruction serves as a way to feel out others and confirm your own existence. Then, you try to find atonement to comfort yourself after you're unable to deny your instincts. I tried to live exactly like that. And you've lived for that same purpose. You disassembled Realians and dreamed of giving consciousness to inorganic matter, comforting yourself for the hatred towards your father and anger over your mother's death. You're doing things you don't want to do, just to escape your own feelings of guilt. Hypocrite. The word doesn't even begin to describe you. Be more true to yourself.
Virgil continues to try to make Xion doubt herself and tells her that all of the testaments learned that despite all the hope in the world, reality will always hit, and that reality is that the human will has a limit. Virgil tries to lure Xion to go with him, but Jin stops this by attacking him. This commences a battle which, just like Voyager, he's a testament, it goes nowhere. After the battle, Virgil hears a voice behind him. It's Febronia. The real Febronia. Febronia tries to get Virgil to see the truth that he isn't as hateful as he pretends to be. He doesn't hate Febronia, he doesn't hate his past self, and he doesn't hate Realians. He simply wants to block out the pain that he felt when Febronia died. Virgil denies her claims, but she tells him that she understands him just like he came to understand the Realians.
And this was the result. Yeah, I came to understand all right. I understand how pointless it all is.
Febronia continues to try to talk to him, but Lewis, who is visibly shaken, tells her to stop talking. Febronia says that despite him saying that he feels no love for any Realians, his reason for becoming a testament was to return to this place and affirm who he once was. Virgil and the rest of the testaments believe that the people who do not want eternal recurrence are rejecting the world, as bypassing eternal recurrence will lead to the universe's destruction. But Febronia explains that they just want to believe that a new world can be born from discord, and that a single human thought can change the future. But Virgil holds on to his nihilism by saying that this is just wishful thinking and false hope. But as Febronia says, their relationship proves that she was right, a statement which seems to strike a nerve with Virgil.
You died and left me! I have nothing to say to you!
Febronia tells him that her death tied his consciousness to this place, but she wants to free him. Virgil, who has had his emotional defenses melted away at this point, breaks down and tells Febronia to
just leave me alone! You're already dead, Fabronia!
Louis, although my body is dead, I am still here with you. I am right beside you. There's no reason for you to suffer.
But,
While Fabronia holds him, Virgil expresses his regret for not being able to save her, but she tells him that it was him and their relationship that made her believe in the idea that a single thought can change the world, and in her eyes, he did save her. Fabronia then asks Louis to come with her, and a bright light glows from the church. As both her and Virgil walk into the light, Xian begs Fabronia not to go, as she has no idea what to do now. Fabronia tells Xian that it's time for her to decide that on her own. She tells her,
Open your heart because she's right beside you.
as Fabronia and Virgil leave into the light, Fabronia thanks Xian, and Xian, once again, says what we're all thinking.
I don't understand anything anymore!
Xian is now feeling more lost than ever. Jin tells her to get up, reminding her that they need to rescue her younger self, and Cosmos, who is right beside her, helps her up. They find little Xian surrounded by Realians, and after they defeat them, Xian decides, much to Juno's dismay, to help her to Labyrinthos. Once inside Labyrinthos, Xian gets another one of her headaches, but she manages to stay awake. Unfortunately, little Xian goes on without them as she is getting up. This simple moment of separation causes little Xian to witness the exact thing Xian was trying to avoid, her parents' death. By the time Xian arrives at her mother's room, it's too late. Her father and mother are already dead. Furious at the Realians and at her own failure, she rushes at the Realians and, along with everyone else, defeats them. Afterwards, Xian falls to the floor crying, as despite knowing exactly what was going to happen, she still couldn't stop her parents' death. Besides them, little Xian is crying over her mother as well, doing her whole I have to put it back routine. Jin tries to snap her out of it, but it's to no avail. The same event as before transpires again, and now Xian is forced to remember the last memory her brain was trying to repress. While Xian is paralyzed with confusion, a Gnosis materializes in front of her, and Jin and Cosmos quickly move to kill it. Xian, who is in a state of disbelief and denial, asks Jin if this is a dream. Then the truth begins to settle in on her.
I called the Gnosis. I made them appear, didn't I?
Xian completely breaks down, begging someone to explain what's happening to her. To give her any other explanation but what she knows to be the truth, but nobody can say anything. Xian is now in a weakened mental state similar to the one she was in as a little girl at this exact moment. That's bad. As she struggles to make sense out of everything, she once again subconsciously calls out to the Zohar. But instead of calling more Gnosis,
Chief! No! No!
she summons Abel's Ark. Chapter 54, The Truth Revealed. As they all look up at Abel's Ark, Rubido notes that
That didn't happen 15 years ago.
Jen and Chaos conclude that this world is not the past. As Chaos explains, the world they're in is a world created from Xian's subconscious by using the consciousness of people from the past. This is why Virgil dying here didn't make a difference in his real timeline. This also explains any other continuity questions you may have, and why the professor's theory of the latent heat energy building up, it doesn't really amount to anything. The Testaments did this in order to use Xion to summon Abel's Ark, which is what was supposed to happen 15 years ago when little Xion called the Gnosis. This is what the Red Testament Kevin meant when he said,
"The space-time anomaly 15 years ago took place in an incomplete fashion. We must..."
After he says this, Kevin confirms Chaos's statement to them telepathically. Then he shows up in the room, much to Xion and Alan's surprise. Kevin tells Xion that he has come back for her, and Xion asks him why he's been hiding this whole time. He said he took the form of a testament because he needed power. Remember what he said when he was younger?
No one has the ability to lead others to the truth. Our powers are too limited. Only those who possess divine power can accomplish that.
Xion is smarter though. She points out that he sacrificed lives to study the Zohar, including her own mother. Kevin's answer to this?
I had no choice. I'm sorry I made you suffer.
Well, that's good enough for Xion. He tries to get Xion to go with him, but Junior steps up and tells him that he has no right to open up her wounds. Kevin explains that no one can save Xion as she is suffering from the same illness as her mother, something Jin was worried about. This is what her headaches have been about. He explains that Xion, along with every test subject in the acute neurosis treatment facility, possess the ability to communicate with Udu or convey their will to Udu. However, much like I explained happens with the people of Zohar way back in the second video, this ability causes the subject's will to go through undue stress, which eventually leads to a coma and death. Alan asks why they didn't just stop the experiments, as the test subjects wouldn't die if they weren't forced to communicate with Udu. But Junior explains that they're not forced to communicate with Udu. As I also explained in the second video, these humans can't decide or be forced to contact Udu. Udu makes contact with the humans, whether they want to or not. So Kevin sums this all up as the reason why they became a testament. It was all to save Xion, and only him and Telos can save him. Apparently, Cosmos was always just a prototype for Telos. I mentioned this in part 8. By the way, I'm just gonna say it now, in case it wasn't clear by what I said back then, and by what Telos and Mary looked like. Telos was made using Mary's body. That's why they needed to recover it from Renelle Chateau, and why they want Cosmos destroyed in order to reunite Mary with her original body, Telos, and thus awakening Mary in her true form. Kevin continues to explain something I forgot to mention back in part 8. Cosmos gets her power from Udu by using the Zohars as a conduit. Either way, this means that every time Cosmos uses her power, she's receiving Udu's waves, and Xion reacts to those waves and slowly loses her life. Long story short,
Cosmos is shortening Chief's lifespan?
You mean Cosmos is going to kill me?
because of this, Kevin tells Xion to go with him as he doesn't want to lose her again. After expressing her happiness at seeing Kevin again, Kevin tells her that he will never leave her again, and Xion runs towards him. However, Jin, still feeling iffy about everything, blocks her path. He's always had good instincts. Telos then shows up, and Xion begs Jin to stop his mistrust. Completely ignoring everything he did, including to her own mother, Xion tells Jin that he's the man that she's loved from the bottom of her heart, and he's the same Kevin she's always known. Xion, in her wish to look for more happiness and stability, seems to be completely fooling herself into believing Kevin's words and disregarding everything she has learned about him during her time in this past Melcha. Despite him working for Utic, working on realians that killed her mother and father, using humans as test subjects, and working on the Zohar link system which entrapped and ultimately killed Cecily and Kath, Xion still says that he's the same Kevin she's always known. Even Junior steps in and tries to shoot him, but Telos blocks it. Xion now feels cornered, as everyone around her wants to get rid of Kevin. Jin pushes Xion onto Cosmos and tells Cosmos to run away with Xion. Kevin, however, tells Cosmos as her creator to bring Xion to him. Alan and Kevin keep trying to convince Cosmos to their side, and after a pause, Cosmos says,
Cosmos!
Kevin Winnicott. I am very sorry, but unfortunately I am not programmed to follow your orders.
Are you trying to defy your creator?
The cosmos that was created by you has been destroyed by Telos, sir. I have different designers, Shion Uzuki and also Mr. Alan Ridgely.
I fucking love that verbal bitch slap to Kevin. Cosmos tells Shion to come with her, but Shion begins being difficult, so Cosmos knocks her out.
I must apologize. Action was needed to avoid danger.
Cosmos leads with Shion by jumping out of a window and summoning her motorcycle pod thing from Xenosaga 2. Telos follows her, but is stopped by E.S. Asher from the past, and just as she's about to attack it, Kevin tells her to return to him. Then, the Elsa finds Cosmos and Shion and picks them up. As the Elsa goes to pick up the rest of the group in the acute neurosis treatment facility, the song of Nephilim begins to ascend and the acute neurosis treatment facility begins to collapse. Ziggy and the rest realize that they have to escape, but before that, Junior and Alan, who don't seem to understand that this world isn't real, try to rescue little Shion, but are blocked by debris. But then we see Jen's younger self rescuing her, so with that, they get into the Elsa, who's arrived to pick them up. As they fly away, Milsha, along with Abel's Ark, disappears behind them in a blinding light. They're finally back in the present time, although I guess technically they were always in the present time. In the exact same location as when they entered the hyposphere. But it doesn't take long for things to get hairy again, as Abel's Ark reappears, this time in the real world. Just like it appeared when Albedo made contact with Udu, it appeared this time as a result of Shion's awakening, quote unquote, for the same reasons, to observe closer. Then Abel's Ark gates into a UMN column to an unknown destination. This creates a shockwave, which shifted a planet nearby into the imaginary Nombre domain. The Durandal then finds and recovers the Elsa. A 100 series Realians in the Durandal explains to Mary, Shelley, and Julie, who is in the Durandal, that Abel's Ark is heading somewhere using the UMN, and as it does so, it's creating waves in the real Nombre domain that are shifting any planets in its range to the imaginary Nombre domain. If this continues, half of the Federation planets will be gone within 72 hours. Julie, remembering what the White Data said, that being that Abel's Ark searches for the Eternal Circle, Zarathustra, realizes that Abel's Ark destination is most likely Mictum, where Zarathustra lies. Both the Federation and Ormus have become aware of these events, and thus both groups begin deploying ships to Mictum. However, it seems Margulis is doing it out of his own volition, as Highline has not given him any orders to deploy the Utic fleet. Pellegrini berates Margulis for this, but Margulis explains that he can't allow the Federation soldiers to desecrate not only his home world, but the place where a relic as sacred as Zarathustra lies.
Shion, what fills your heart? Is it fear, sadness, or joy?
I don't know. I don't understand myself.
Are you afraid? What are you afraid of? Why are you afraid? Are you afraid of being isolated from the world? Are you afraid of people rejecting you? Are you afraid of your eventual death?
Afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of being alone.
What does it mean to be alone? Is it more terrifying than death? Why does your face show such an expression?
I don't know. I don't understand anything. Help me. Please, someone help me. Tell me who I am.
Seems like Shion was having another Udu fever dream. She wakes up in the Elsa and she begins talking to herself, wondering what Kevin would have her do. When Jin shows up, Shion asks Jin why she didn't let her go, asking him if he doesn't care that she's going to die like their mother.
Don't be stupid. No brother wants to see his sister die.
After Shion tells Jin to leave her alone and to not take anything else from her, Jin leaves the room, feeling pathetic for not being able to help his sister, feeling as a stranger in her life. Before leaving the room, he tells Cosmos that despite what Kevin said, at this moment, Cosmos might be the only person to be able to get through to Xian and help her. When Cosmos approaches Xian asks her if what Kevin said was true. Despite Cosmos knowing that there is no connection between her systems and Xian's life, she believes that they shouldn't disregard his words, as considering that he was her designer. Then Xian asks her why it is that she's always protecting her. She may be assigned to protect Vector employees, but Cosmos has always gone out of her way to protect Xian specifically. Cosmos tells her that protecting her is regarded as her highest priority, and that it is something beyond her core module and control program. This is more than just programming. It's never fully stated, but my guess is that this is because of Mary's will inside of her. Then Xian begins thinking that if she's the one who called the Gnosis, perhaps if she dies, they'll go away. She begins to question everything. She's confused and lost, but afraid of dying and being alone.
I don't want to be alone, Cosmos.
Then, behind Cosmos, Nephilim appears. Nephilim tells her not to reject everything or she will end up alone. Then Xian tells her what we have all felt like saying to Nephilim at some point.
What do you want? Are you here to say a bunch of cryptic things again and confuse me? You're always like that. You just appear in front of me, say whatever you feel like, then just watch without actually doing anything.
Nephilim tells Xian that although Kevin does need her, it is not for the same reason that she needs him, and his salvation may not be what she wants, that being eternal recurrence. If Xian goes to see him now, she will have to make a painful decision. However, Xian is undeterred and says that she still wants to talk to him. So, Nephilim tells her that Kevin needs the Zohar, both her and Cosmos and Abel, who is currently being used as Omega's pilot for Uriev's ends. Before leaving, Nephilim tells Xian,
"Set Abel free from his curse. If you do, Kevin will appear before you once again."